The movie begins with a beautiful wedding scene where the main characters, Julianne and her boyfriend Mitch, finally get married. After exchanging vows, Mitch thanks Julianne's mother for organizing the celebration. He also thanks her father for not being there, perhaps because they don't get along well, or because the father has many commitments. Right after the wedding, they go on a 2-week honeymoon to a remote island. Mitch mentions that he discovered this place a year ago when he was hunting with his father. In fact, the island doesn't have modern amenities like electricity, TV, internet, or running water. They will be staying for 2 weeks in an old cabin in the middle of an isolated lake. Julianne is a bit worried about being in such an isolated house surrounded by water, but tries to adapt and feels safe with Mitch. They take a boat to the house they rented. Despite Mitch saying they would be safe, Julianne has trouble calling her mother because there's no phone signal. Mitch offers to go back, but Julianne wants to continue despite the setback. When they enter the rustic house, Julianne sees some inscriptions on the walls made by someone called SR. Then she discovers a tradition where visitors mark their nights there with marks. Everything seems normal until the next day, when Julianne sees Mitch putting the truck keys in a safety box and keeping the key close to him like a charm. Instead of asking him about it, Julianne ignores it and continues to enjoy time with her beloved. As an art student, Julianne focuses on drawings. She wants to focus on her art before having a child, and Mitch, being understanding, supports her decision, despite wanting to have a child with her. There's a scene where Julianne tries to get into the water, but becomes too scared to go further, so she decides to return to the cabin. One day, when Mitch invites her to join him in the water, she refuses, worried about ruining her makeup. But when Mitch insists, she agrees to rest on a raft. As time passes, Julianne falls asleep without noticing the danger. Mitch goes inside the house to do some things, while the raft starts to leak. A frightening event occurs when Julianne falls unconscious into the water, struggling to stay afloat. Mitch acts quickly and rescues her. Hey, what would you do if you were trapped with a psychopath on an isolated island? The movie I'm going to summarize is called Devil's Pond. It's an interesting film that mixes drama and suspense. Even though the film is a bit old, it's worth checking out. So I invite you to subscribe to the channel, activate the bell, and leave a like to receive the best recaps. After nearly drowning, Julianne reveals her fear of water and her inability to swim. Mitch expresses regret, saying he would never have brought her there if he had known about her phobia. The next day, Julianne confronts Mitch about the locked safety box and why he keeps the truck keys. Mitch says it's for security, but gets irritated when she questions him, arguing that he never questioned her makeup choices. Julianne feels upset about his strange behavior and retreats inside the house, while Mitch, recognizing his mistake, tries to apologize by building an easel for her. Later, Julianne joins him to explore the forest on a hunt. She even suggests a trip to the nearby town to shop and talk to her mother, but Mitch seems worried and doesn't pay attention, busy setting up an animal trap. He becomes frightened when he realizes Julianne has disappeared without a trace, and searches frantically until he finds her picking flowers. Mitch takes her back home and gives up on the hunting plans. Julianne seems unable to sleep, as if already bored and lost in that place. The next day, she suggests going back home, saying 10 days in nature is enough. Expressing her desire to start their lives together, she asks Mitch to leave, missing her mother. But to her surprise, Mitch responds abruptly that they can't leave until the 2-week honeymoon is over. Julianne is confused by Mitch's behavior and continues insisting on returning home, which makes Mitch explode in anger, blaming her and her mother for ruining the honeymoon. Saying she has to do what he says, Mitch gets angry and goes to check his traps, leaving Julianne furious. Desperate to get the locked truck keys, she becomes frustrated and throws things to calm down. After realizing he was wrong, Mitch returns home and sincerely apologizes to Julianne for being rude. But the next day, another problem arises when Julianne notices her birth control pills have disappeared from her bag. She asks Mitch about it, but he's also confused. This leads to another argument, with Julianne insisting they return home because she needs the pills, but Mitch thinks that since they're married, they can start a family. While Julianne continues wanting to leave, Mitch becomes more threatening and says they won't leave. Seeing how much Mitch has changed, Julianne realizes she needs to get out of there to avoid going crazy. While Mitch goes out to get food, she tries to escape by entering the water, but her fear prevents her from doing so. The next day, Mitch wakes up and notices Julianne isn't around. But when he goes out, he finds her fishing alone, not realizing she's planning to escape. Taking advantage of her absence, he takes some of her paintings and tries to hide them in a safe place. But Julianne returns in time and catches him doing this. Among the paintings, she sees a drawing of a bird on a napkin from the restaurant where she used to go with her ex-boyfriend, Anthony. Remembering that she and Mitch met outside that restaurant when he was waiting for a bus, Julianne suspects it wasn't a coincidence, but that Mitch had been following her. Mitch says Julianne is beautiful and admits to having seen her near the restaurant several times, but denies following her. They've been out of town for 2 weeks, which causes another fight where Julianne insists they return home. However, Mitch again says no, and that's when Julianne says Anthony is better than him in bed, saying that at least her ex didn't fall asleep after intimacy. Mitch gets very angry and starts using violence, pushing Julianne to the limit. Julianne hits him on the head with a bottle, grabs the phone, and flees to the forest in the boat. But we see that Mitch can still walk and even follows her by swimming. Unfortunately, when she tries to call her mother, at the moment her mother answers, the phone dies, so she can only run as far as possible through the forest. On the way, she finds a grave, not knowing who is buried there. Then she hears Mitch shouting for her and hides behind a tree. But eventually, Mitch finds her, and Julianne pretends to be confused, saying her actions were due to a mental problem. While Julianne is sleeping, Mitch sabotages her chances of leaving the island by deliberately sinking the boat. When Julianne asks about the boat the next day, Mitch casually says it might have sunk. She becomes furious and starts painting when she notices a boat cushion floating in the water. Seeing it as something that could help her float, she discreetly tries to grab the boat cushion using a fishing line while Mitch is distracted playing guitar. Although Mitch suspects what she's doing, Julianne manages to hide the cushion before he notices. The same day, Mitch takes the truck keys and goes to town, saying he has work there. But in reality, he wants to visit the grave that Julianne found before. To get the truck keys, Julianne becomes intimate with Mitch so he'll fall asleep quickly. While he sleeps, she takes the keys and opens the safety box. Inside, she finds a letter showing that Mitch is the sole owner of the house, and the initials she had seen on the wall before were just his name, SR. She takes the keys and goes to the forest using the cushion as a float. But when she reaches the truck, she encounters a problem. It won't start. She sees a flashlight in the distance and gets nervous, knowing Mitch is coming. Soon after, Mitch appears right in front of the window. With Mitch's gun in hand, she makes him fix the vehicle. But the situation worsens when Mitch distracts her and suddenly appears breaking. The next day, Julianne wakes up chained to a tree on the island, seeing that Mitch is acting disturbed. He starts destroying the float, revealing secrets about his house and his father. Mitch reveals that his father always pressured him to find a partner and start a family. One day, during a hunt, his father's pressure makes Mitch so angry that he ends up committing a terrible act, killing him. He buries the body near the island to stay close to his father. Mitch vents his anger by destroying Julianne's things, throwing away her painting tools, and burning her easel. Meanwhile, Julianne cries under the hot sun, realizing her difficult situation. As Mitch becomes stranger, Julianne is sure she was kidnapped. She thinks Mitch planned everything. She thinks he knew her phone wouldn't work and that she couldn't swim. Mitch doesn't deny this, but says he loves her. When it starts to rain, Julianne asks Mitch to let her go, using the love he claims to feel for her as an argument. But Mitch is determined to stay on the island and start a family with her, even if it seems crazy. Even so, Julianne doesn't lose hope and makes a plan to escape. She sets fire to the matches, hoping this will convince Mitch to go to town for more. At first, Mitch hesitates, but eventually agrees when he realizes he can't make fire without matches. While Mitch is away, Julianne takes advantage to free herself. With a fishing net, she retrieves an axe she had seen in the water before and cuts the chain that tied her to the tree. Then she finds the hidden raft and secures it with a rock so it won't float away. After fixing any leaks, she inflates the raft and heads toward the forest. Meanwhile, Mitch's truck breaks down, so he thinks about using the cigarette lighter as an alternative to matches. Julianne steals an animal trap and places it near the firewood in the house before Mitch returns. She manages to return to the chair where she was before, When Mitch arrives, she suggests he get the firewood to make a fire while she prepares the meal. Mitch suggests using a lit cigarette to start a fire since the truck broke down. Julianne worries about what they would do in an emergency, but Mitch reassures her. Julianne tries to hide her escape by asking Mitch to light another cigarette, and she lights the fire. Since without a car, the chance of leaving the forest is almost zero. But tension rises when Mitch finds water on the chair, showing that Julianne escaped. Mitch confirms his suspicions when he sees the raft on the coast. He becomes very aggressive this time, without arguing. To defend herself, Julianne runs inside the house with Mitch right behind. He throws her outside, leaving her vulnerable and needing a new strategy. While Mitch assaults her, she pushes him into an animal trap. Julianne takes his key and tries to get the gun, but Mitch recovers and overpowers her by pulling the chain. Julianne quickly manages to reload the gun, and when he tries to attack her with a knife, she shoots his hand with the shotgun. Mitch falls wounded. Julianne doesn't kill him. Instead, she attaches the chain to the gun and places it near Mitch so he can choose what to do. Overcoming her fear of water, Julianne swims tirelessly until she reaches the other shore. Later, she hears a shot. It seems Mitch killed himself, unable to deal with the idea that he lost Julianne forever because of his own abusive and controlling behavior. Afterwards, Julianne is seen smoking a cigarette. In a powerful gesture, she throws her wedding ring into the truck, symbolizing her liberation from the suffering she faced. Then she heads toward town to reunite with her family after weeks of anguish. And so the movie ends. What rating would you give this movie? Have you ever experienced a similar situation? Don't forget to activate the bell to be notified of new summaries. So until next time,